If you're sitting there and you don't want to be here for 20 minutes, then I'm just going to give you the final line as quickly as possible. The written lore states that the Pax did not make the obelisks, the objects that summoned the anomaly energy from the core of Enoch, but it suggests instead that there was a different race responsible for this. I believe I found evidence of this other race in the statues in-game. I believe that there was another species, another race that was also humanoid in nature. I believe the key characteristic between them and the Pax was that the Pax had 4 fingers and that this race had 5. I have ultimately come to the conclusion that this race were cruel to the Pax and enslaved them and used them as a labor force. I do not believe this race will return in the DLC, and I believe that they have been wiped out, and I think it's a miracle that the Pax did not join them. That is literally everything summed up in 43 seconds, 44 seconds, 45. Haha, I just wasted 3 seconds of your time. Okay, bye-bye. Before I officially begin this video and I go digging really deep into the lore as I always do, I just want to show you something, and that is the structure for this video, and I'll explain why afterwards. So to begin, I'm going to show you the discovery I made. Okay, pretty obvious. The second thing then is I'm going to take that discovery and I'm going to show you how I made a connection between that and the written lore. Third, I'm going to show you why I believe that this discovery was not just some accident or bug or anything like that, and why I believe it was an intentional implementation by the dev team. Okay. Next, if this was, done on purpose, this discovery that I'm about to show you, then I want to tell you where I believe the devs drew inspiration from. The source material, shall we say. And finally, when that's all said and done, I will present you with my own personal, subjective opinion and then final statement. So why did I just give you my structure? Well, because, let's be honest, boys and girls, everyone, the video title is a little clickbaity. It may appear that way, but I'm here to tell you that it is not. Okay? I will, to the very best of my ability, not say anything that is not backed up in some form or another with evidence or proof. That being said, the video is titled as a theory video because, and the reason for this, is because in this video I will be raising a lot of questions. However, lore master that I am, I will not be able to give you all the answers. So at times, there will be some speculation, but as this structure shows, when there is speculation, it will be as educated as it can be. With that being said, yeah, I think we can get into it now. Yeah, let's get into it. What was the discovery that I made? I'm not gonna waffle around the place. I'm gonna try and be as direct as possible. I was recording background footage from my PAX video. Really recommend you watch that, by the way. You don't have to watch it now. You can watch it after. It's all good. It's all good. But I was recording background footage for the video, and I noticed something with some of the statues in the ruin areas. If you played Outriders, you know what I mean? The locations where there's, the ancient ruins and creepy statues and the ghosts that hiss at you. You know what I mean? Okay. And that is really what led me down the path of digging deep into this topic. Before I go further, okay, so I told you that, it has to do with statues, but now I need to give you a connection to the lore. What does this have to do with the lore at all? Okay, so what? You saw something weird with the statues. Again, if you watched my PAX video, the thing that stood out most to me and to my viewers, because it actually was commented and also commented multiple times, and people, that was my toe that just cracked. People commented this multiple times, and then also in my stream we had a discussion about this, is the fact that the Pax did not make the obelisks. Okay, I'm going to try to be as brief as possible here, okay? If you know anything about Outriders, like the lore, you know that there's the anomaly. You know that there's the storms. Well, the Pax, they used to be able to contain the storms by using these things called obelisks. Okay, that's pretty basic, but you get what I'm saying. However, the lore, the written lore, specifically says that the Pax didn't actually make that. They merely discovered it and then they figured out how to use it. And then the lore specifically states that the ones who did make the obelisks were either an ancient predecessor version of the Pax, their ancestors, so to say, or, and again it says this was a different race entirely. Okay, so why did I talk about statues and now I'm telling you this? The reason why I told you this is because I need you to think and get in the mindset. I'm going to be showing you some, B-roll in the background. With this information in mind, when you are in these areas, you need to stop and think, what parts of this area were always there, made when everything else was made, and what parts were simply tacked on by the packs after they figured out how to use the obelisks. Because with this information, with what's said in the lore, and with the discovery I made, it is clear that the packs didn't necessarily make all of the structures at once. Okay. And again, that's not speculation. What I said about the lore, with them not making the obelisks, that's a fact, and that's going to be the foundation of this. Okay, so let's talk about my discovery, and I'll just keep what I said in mind. The packs are a humanoid race. I say humanoid because, they kind of have the physicality of humans. Except they have they have more than two, but they have two very distinct differences when it comes to them and human beings. The first key difference is that they have a line going down the center of their chest. It's really pronounced. Second is the fact that all packs have only 4 fingers, so 3 fingers and a thumb. Whereas obviously, I don't know how you were born, but most humans are born with 4 fingers and a thumb, so 5. Okay. So you would think with the packs having 4 fingers in total, that their statues would also have 4 fingers. You would be correct in assuming that because most statues actually do have 4 fingers. However, I have found a consistent pattern and a consistent type of statue that, as a matter of fact, has 5 fingers. And it's not just a matter of, it's missing a finger, it was broken off, or anything like that. The actual structure of the hand is completely different. So for the pack statues, their fingers are a lot, thicker, because with 3 fingers, it needs to take up more of the hand, if you get me. Whereas with 4 fingers, the fingers need to be smaller in order to fit in. I hope you get what I'm saying. When you see the actual statues, you'll know what I'm saying. Okay. So, 100%, there are statues in the game that have 4 fingers, that have the same physicality as the packs. But now we have these other mysterious statues that have 5 fingers. You cannot see their faces, and only recently was I able to figure out what their chests looked like. And I can tell you for a fact, they do not have the line going down that's as pronounced as the packs. So what am I trying to tell you? Well, the title of the video says it all. I believe that we're looking at another race in Outriders. A race that is most likely now extinct. Before I talk about the possible inspiration behind, what's going on with these statues, I just want to quickly confirm why I believe it's intentional. Because the only real possibility of this not being intentional and it being a mistake or an accident is if the devs originally had the packs being way more humanoid and they had 5 fingers, and then at some stage they were like, nah, these guys need to be more alien, let's take away a finger, and then the statues that I'm on about, they got forgotten about and they made it into the full game. That's the only chance of it not being intentional. However, like I said at the start, the lore says that the obelisks, the heart of a lot of these areas, were not made by the packs. Either made by their ancestors, or they were made by a different species. Now, I know nobody's arguing this, but let's just say the lore is presenting us with an argument. The argument has 2 different options here. The first is that the ones that made the obelisks were some form of the packs. The second argument is that this was a different species entirely. I'm going to tell you the 2 main reasons why I do not believe that this was some form of the packs. The first reason is that if this was a version of the packs, okay, they made the obelisks, then they had the storms under control, because presumably that is what the obelisks were designed to do, contain the storms. If you watched my packs video, I explained exactly how they worked, so you'll know what I'm talking about. But yeah, most likely they were designed to contain the storms. So if this was some form of the packs that made them, then why would they allow the storms to be unleashed and drive their species to the brink of extinction? It just doesn't make sense. The second reason is, even if this was the case, you would think that the knowledge of how to use the obelisks would be transported or translated somehow into the caves where the packs were hiding. But no, when the packs actually returned to the surface after who knows how long, they had no idea how to use the obelisks, and they had to try and figure it out for themselves. Again, if this was some version of that same race, at the very least the knowledge of how to operate those devices would have been passed down. But it didn't seem like that was the case. So those are the two reasons why I don't believe that this was some predecessor version of the packs that ultimately evolved or devolved into the packs. I believe that this was a different species. Okay, so let's assume that these statues are of a different race. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you, if that is the case, where I believe the inspiration came from in designing this race. I touched on this in the first ever Outriders video that I made, the one that is doing way better than it needs to be doing. It's blessed by the YouTube algorithm, and that is the Fall of Earth video. And I touched on Enoch, because again, the planet that we're all playing on is called Enoch. But Enoch isn't just a cool name. Enoch is the name of a guy who is part of a story where you have two different humanoid races. You have normal humans who have 5 fingers, and then you have a hybrid race of humans known as the Nephilim, and it is speculated that they had 6 fingers. Why am I telling you this? Because in this game, where we already have the packs with 4 fingers and humans with 5, the planet is named after a story where you had the same thing. 2 different humanoid races with different finger counts. So again, I wouldn't be surprised if that is where they got the inspiration from. Alright. So I've given you my discovery, which are these statues. You can see clearly, I hope I've made it very clear using the background footage, that they are not packs and that they have different finger counts. I've shown you the connection between these statues and the written lore and the obelisks and all that. I've told you why I believe it's intentional and not an accident. I've shown you what I believe to be the inspiration behind this, what the devs were using as source material when coming up with this. Finally, what is my opinion? What do I think this race were? Do I think they will be in the DLCs, if there are DLCs? What's my opinion? Now, I actually ended up not using a previous version of this video that I had edited the video. I just had to put the background footage together and I was going to upload it, but my opinion changed because as I did way more digging, my opinion changed. And I'm now going to tell you, for the moment, my final opinion on this matter. Do I believe that there is a secret race in Outriders? Yes, I do. Do I believe they were human? Now, when I say human, I don't mean they were from Earth at all. I just mean they looked like humans, but they were native to Enoch. I really don't know. I'm really conflicted. We have this race that I don't believe they are packs, so that's a different race entirely. But they're also humanoid, and they have 5 fingers. I just think it would be really strange to have another really humanoid race, give them the 5 fingers and everything to set them apart from the packs, and not have them be human. The only reason I am not 100% convinced that these guys weren't human to some extent is only because of the way this chest piece kind of looks. Again, it could be a really poor attempt by whoever it was that made the statues to create a human chest, but again, you see what I mean. It's a little too different to be certain about it. So the jury's still out on that. But this was a humanoid race, whatever these people were. Okay, I believe you had the packs, and you had this other humanoid race that made the obelisks. Okay. Do I think they will be in the DLCs? No. I believe they were wiped out by the anomaly. That's my personal opinion. And finally, what do I think of this race? Is there any information we can get from them? Or are they just statues that we know made the obelisks? My friends, I could be completely wrong in saying this, but this is what I believe happened. I have come to the conclusion, and it could be the completely wrong conclusion, but I have come to the conclusion that I believe this race enslaved the Pax before everything went down. Before the storms were unleashed, before the Pax were driven to the brink of extinction. I believe that this other race enslaved the Pax. And the reason why is because you first encounter the ruined areas when you go in the jungle part of the place, and I'm pretty sure the location is just called Ancient Ruins. It's the location before the big gate, if you know what I mean. And that's where we first see those statues. However, in Utargok, which is the Pax town where August was from, there's none of those statues at all. None of them. In any location, I'm pretty sure there's none of them. And as for Pax City, there's only one, but it's like hidden away in the corner, which completely goes against the general theme of these other locations. In the Ancient Ruins, in the Gate location, and also in the Canyon of the Grand Obelisk, those five-fingered statues are prominent. And I believe that this race made the obelisks, and I believe they enslaved the Pax, and I believe they used the Pax as a labor force to make these locations. And the reason why I'm saying this is because, yeah, there are Pax statues as well, but apart from the one statue, which I believe to be a very important character, and I might make a video on this later on, but apart from that, look at the way these Pax are depicted. They're depicted as slaves. They're depicted to be in despair, holding up the burden of the architecture of the pillars. And finally, look at this, the way the bodies are all crammed together. Again, if these people, the Pax, if they made this willingly and they were completely fine, why would they depict themselves like that? I personally don't understand. Why depict the clearest looking Pax in the statues and all that as desperate, miserable slaves, and then the ones that really don't look like Pax have them look all cool and regal? It doesn't make sense. You get what I'm saying? So I believe this race made the obelisks enslave the Pax, made them be a workforce. And something happened. I don't know if the Pax became pharaohs again, or for the first time, and obliterated this race. And as a kill switch or something like that, this race were like, screw it, we're losing, so if we can't have the planet, no one can, and then they deactivated the obelisks. I don't know. That's actually my personal guess, okay? I actually think that this would make sense, considering the Pax didn't actually know how to use the obelisks when they first came to the surface. If you think about it, if they were slaves, and then they became pharaohs, and they were winning, if whatever this other race were, if they deactivated the obelisks, technically the Pax actually wouldn't have had a chance, and they would have, of course, been forced to hide in the caves. So that's my guess, and I think this race died off, and I think the Pax were very lucky to not join them. So that's everything that I can tell you about this. There are a few other discoveries that I made, especially about the one statue that keeps coming up. And I might even have an identity behind that. But I'm going to save that for a different video because it's going to make this video way longer than it needs to be. So to summarize, I'm probably going to have to make a timestamp for this. To summarize, I made a discovery about these statues. They didn't look Pax-like at all. I then made a connection to the lore, saying that there was room for there to be another species in the mix, another race. And so I began digging in to see if these statues were that race. And of course, this other race that's mentioned in the lore would mean that the statues wouldn't be an accident, but they would be an intentional implementation by the dev team. The fact that the only clear difference between this race and the Pax being the finger count, you have an inspiration behind that being Enoch. And finally, I gave you my opinion. I think that this race, if this was a different race, I think they were brutal. I think they enslaved the Pax. And personally, again, I can't prove this, but personally, I do think that they were overthrown and that they deactivated the obelisks as a failsafe. But yeah, after all the digging I've done, that is everything that I've been able to come up with. Have I possibly been talking about the completely wrong conclusions? That's possible. But again, at least I did my best. So with that being said, if you were curious about the possibility of there being another race, whether they're human or a different humanoid race that also had 5 fingers, then this is everything I can tell you about them. With that being said, I hope you were at least entertained by the video, and if you did, just thank you for getting this far in the video. I really appreciate that. There's no need to subscribe or like or anything like that. Your viewership is enough for me. But with that being said, take care, my friends. Take care.